I'm Michelle Gauthier, and you're listening to the Overwhelmed Working Woman podcast. Thanks for joining Overwhelmed Working Woman. Today, we have a guest that I am super excited about, Susan Hyatt. I wrote down some notes to introduce her, and you cannot do a short intro. I will just tell you a couple of the amazing things about her. She's a master certified life coach. She's a self-made multi-millionaire, not just a one-time millionaire, a best-selling author of the book Bear, which is one of my favorites and something I recommend to my clients all the time. She's a patriarchy smasher, true story, who has helped just thousands of women at this point get more of what they want in their lives. She's been in Oprah Magazine, she's done a TED Talk, and now she is here with us today on Overwhelmed Working Woman. Thank you, Susan. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. I wanted to have you on the podcast because I've followed you on social media for, 10 years or something. And I just love what you have to say. You bring the best energy. And because I have previously worked with you, you were my business coach for a while. There are so many things that you taught me, and this has been years ago now, that I still do. So I just wanted to thank you for that. One of the things that you taught me to do that I did not know how to do before was to pitch myself. When I was working with you, I got on a local TV show. I started pitching myself to get on other people's podcasts. And just like you said, eventually it will turn around where people invite me to be on their podcast now. So thank you for giving me that first courage to put myself out there. And then the other biggest thing that I learned from you was the idea that the more fun I have, the more money I make in business. So
Yes.
I would love for you to just tell us about, I know that's one of your big mottos in life. So I'd love for you to tell us about that.
Well, usually when I say that, people can't quite believe it because it's the opposite of how we're raised. We're raised, you only get to play after you get your work done, dessert after you eat your veggies. And the notion that fun can bring money isn't really part of our cultural narrative. And when I became a life coach in 2007, I was coming out of a real estate career that was really profitable for me and rewarding in a lot of ways, but it wasn't really what I was meant to be doing. And I had just worn myself out. I was quite burnt out. And so when I started this company, I asked myself, what would the opposite be? Because it was all hard work. I was sleeping with my cell phone. I was always available for clients, not enough time off. And I came up with, what if it was possible to have fun and make money? And so that quickly became the more fun I have, the more money I make. When I claimed that as a mantra, I did not really believe it at first. I just have to say that. And I set out, though, to try to find evidence that that could be true. And over time, I started following my feel good and creating programs and writing and speaking about topics that mattered to me and making sure that I was having a good time while I was doing it. And I started proving it true. And now to this day, I end things, programs, offerings. I will shut down appearances like we were just talking about if it starts to not feel as fun anymore, if it starts to feel hustly. I will shift gears and find the thing that brings me the most energy to do. And that has over time really proven to be effective for me as a business owner.
Which is just amazing because it is completely counterintuitive. And I remember when I was working with you, again, this is years ago, I had my best month ever. And it was the month that I went to France and went to the World Cup and was gone for 2 weeks. And I had my best business month ever. Yes. And it was how did that even happen? But I just feel like you put that good energy into your job and into your life and somehow magically comes back. One of the things that is so much fun, you are just fun embodied. I feel like you're always having fun and always doing cool things. So I'm wondering if you could just give us a little overview of just the places you've gone in the past year where you've done fun coaching things. And then as a second question, how do you keep from being overwhelmed?
You're probably referencing what I'm now calling 3 continents in a pilgrimage, um, which I think is going to be a new TED Talk. I love to travel, and thank you for that compliment. I just have to say that not everything I do in business would seem like fun, like writing pitches. I love that you're like, oh, I learned from you how to pitch myself. I actually was working on a pitch right before we jumped on here. And that might not seem like fun, but you can always bring fun energy to it. Like you are the fun, you bring the fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I love to travel. And it is honestly the thing that fills me the most, just about. So, one of the things that I do is I offer retreats for women. And I pick places that I want to go that my clients say, hey, if you ever do a retreat in Vietnam, sign me up. And so I combine the accelerated expansion that travel offers. I combine that with coaching. So this in the past year, I've gone to Morocco, I've gone to Ireland, I've gone to Spain to walk the Camino, and most recently to Vietnam. And what that offers, I really think a destination can serve also as a master coach. I combine things that I love with coaching that I love, and that creates a really fun atmosphere for transformation to happen.
That's just so amazing because, if someone would have heard that idea, they would have been like, you can't do that. You can't just be taken off all over the world and take women on these trips and help them change their lives wherever you want. And you're like, yeah, I can. Watch me do it.
Well, I will say that I started small. I started locally and then domestically in the United States. And then once I felt like, hey, this is something I really, really like to do, I started picking out destinations all over the world. And I'm somebody who had not left the country until my 15-year-old son at the time, he's 25 now, so this was 10 years ago, talked me into going to Thailand. That was my first trip out of the country. And I held a retreat in Thailand. And I credit Ryan James Hyatt for that audacity.
That is so great. How fun. Oh my goodness. So how do you keep yourself? Because this whole audience, they're hardworking, motivated women, just like you and just like me, but sometimes they're feeling really overwhelmed. So when I hear that you've been to 3 continents in a pilgrimage in the past year and running this multi-million-dollar business, and I know from being your client, the level of dedication you put into everything that you do, how do you keep from being overwhelmed?
That's such a great question. And let me tell you something, because I came from burnout, I'm very, very aware of my energy and of my capacity. And I'm very devoted to self-care. And I do think of self-care as a business plan. I'm not saying I don't get tired, but what I am saying is I pay very close attention to understanding what my capacity is. And I create the conditions for me to thrive. So I know sleep is a real hot button for overwhelmed, overworked moms and women. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pretty devoted to sleep hygiene. I'm very devoted to rituals. So something that I call Big Yes Energy, or the celebration factor, which is practices that keep me in the present moment so that I can access gratitude and so that I can also ritualize celebrating everything, including the morning, the evening. I'm pretty devoted to movement and hydration and eating well. And also, I have great boundaries with myself around business hours. In fact, I have at the end of the day, I have something I call a desk blessing, where 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, I put my hands on this desk and say that, good job. That has to be enough. We're done. And I shut this door and I do not come back. So
that is amazing. My goodness.
It's a ritual. It's like, hey, there's always more to do, right? There's always a to-do list that's never ending. But for today, this has to be enough.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I feel like when I first created my business, I defaulted into the way that I knew how to work. which was to try to work as much as possible and make it the least fun, make it as hard as possible. Yeah.
Right.
Because I had a belief that I could make money, lots of money, but it had to be hard or it had to be like a beating somehow. So I totally understand that. And I think that's something that a lot of people listening probably feel like they don't have a choice. Like I have so many things to do all the time, but it's so good to remember you do have a choice. There may be some implications to that choice. Like, for example, if you're stopping working when there's more on the to-do list, it's not going to get done. But there's always tomorrow. Maybe that thing wasn't meant to be. I think being able to walk away from it and prioritize whatever you're doing in the evenings.
I agree with you. And I also think that we as women can buy into like people-pleasing behaviors and also just this sense of urgency that our world has.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gotten better at being like, you know what? I don't have to answer every single person that decided to email me today. Some of them can wait. And honestly, most of them should.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes our body even tells us that it's an emergency. It's an obligation. And we have to be able to check it and say, I don't actually have to do this.
I don't. Yeah. And I can ask for help. I think that's the other thing that overwhelmed and overworked women really aren't great at because we're taught not to do it. But learning how to ask for everything, ask for help, ask for support, ask for a raise, ask for more money, ask for a testimonial, like get comfortable asking so that it's not just you doing in isolation.
Yes, yes. And do you have regular things that you surround yourself? Like, I know you have people who help you in your business, you have people who help in your home, fitness, all that stuff. Will you tell us about some of the support people you have in your life?
Yeah, I do. And I think when I'm working with stressed out, overworked moms or women, I don't actually have a preference where you start. If you feel more stressed in your home than you do in your work life, then start at home. Because I think like getting help with your personal systems can give you the energy to do what you need to do business-wise, or it can work in reverse as well. So I don't have a preference, but in my personal home, I have an amazing, listen, I would eat beans before I would not afford the cleaning company that I have, totally tidy, that comes to my house every Monday and keeps this house. I have 6 animals in this house.
Oh my goodness.
3 dogs and 3 cats, and 2 of those cats are Persians. Okay, so they need to be here regularly. Yeah. I have a personal chef some of the time, although Michelle, you're not even going to believe it because I know you know me from way back when in my non-cooking days. I'm now in my chef era.
I saw it. You posted a few things. And I was like, look at Susan having a domestic moment, cooking some stuff here.
My friends are like, this is going to last till next Tuesday, but okay, make some scones.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I do have help with errands. I have help with cooking. I have a personal trainer. These are all things that help me I have doggy daycare that help me in my personal life. And then professionally, I have a full-time executive assistant and several subcontractors that help me with things like marketing and copywriting and social media, et cetera. So over time, I have built up a big support network. I think like you can start with asking for the other people who live under the same roof to do things so that you're not carrying the part-time job of invisible workload.
Yes. Oh, I would love for you to talk on that topic for a few minutes. Your fury about it sometimes when you post just makes me so like happy. Like I just see that you're just infuriated with the ridiculousness of it. I'm like, yes, exactly.
Well, it's just so absurd when you really stop to think about it, like how much we do that is an invisible part-time job. And I'm an empty nester now, and that has relaxed a lot of that load, as well as having the help that I mentioned. But you'll notice that a lot of the subcontracted help I have in my home life are things that if I didn't have the money to do that, would most likely fall on the woman of the house if she didn't have an equitable partnership. And so I have an amazing husband who we just celebrated our 30-year vow renewal. And he also says things like, do we have a sink stopper for this sink? What do you mean? You've lived in this house how many years? You don't know where it is? Because he's hardly ever washed any dishes. I mean, the absolute. So now he'll be holding like his cell phone in his hand and say like, do you know what the weather is? And I'm like, gee, I don't know. That phone in your hand might be able to
probably tell you.
Oh right. And so he's learning after 30 years of marriage, but I do get infuriated by it because women are so bogged down with that additional workload.
Absolutely. And it just automatically falls on us. I mean, I'm a single mom and I noticed that the words that I use, even with my kids who are 16 and 13 and very able and sometimes even willing to help, could you guys help me out by bringing the groceries in? I'm like, why are you helping me out? We all three live here and we all three eat these groceries. Like, I just assume everything is my responsibility and that they're like my assistants and I need them to help me out. And it's like, okay, we're going to bring in the groceries. Could you please get some of the groceries and bring them in? Yes. I can ask them, but I don't have to act like they're doing me a huge favor.
That's such a great example that I absolutely remember falling into, like help mom out. The other thing that I've noticed now that my kids are empty nesters is still the emotional invisible workload. So the role we assume with managing moods and personalities in the family. And so recently we were all getting together for Thanksgiving in New York, where my daughter lives. And she was texting me, asking me if I would please inform the men of the family. So her father and her brother about a certain political topic that she was not going to discuss with them. And I said, are you asking me to do the emotional workload for you? Because I don't think so. And she was like, oh, and she goes, okay, I'll text them, right? But it's so like, good. No, mom's not available for that.
Yes. And what a good lesson to her that somebody won't do that to her now that she realized that she was doing that to you probably without meaning to. Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to let this interview end without talking about Bare because that's another one of my favorite things that you taught me. So will you tell them a little bit about your book and just your whole outlook on women and their bodies and diet culture, your favorite diet culture? That's almost, I feel as much passion about that as the invisible workload from you.
Well, I tell you what, and I am on fire today about also the ageist stuff now that I turned 50. But so Bare, for all of your listeners, is a book about loving the skin that you're in. And it's a 7-step process that I developed over many, many years of working with thousands of women of how to really bring a woman home to herself, to love her body and to stop dieting. And one of the things that I love to ask audiences to consider is how much time they spend worried, counting, measuring the calories and the food that they consume so that they can take up less space. And it's, whatever it is now, $100 billion industry designed to convince us that we would be better if we took up less space. And so the average age that a girl starts dieting is 8 years old. And the domino effect of the loss of confidence ends up more women dying in poverty than ever before. So you have girls who start dieting at 8, by the time they're 13, they have 30% less confidence than their male counterparts. That results in girls and women not learning how to advocate for themselves, not going for the jobs they want, not asking for raises, earning less money because there's already a wage gap. So think about it. If you're over concerned, if you're using all your capacity for thigh gap, you're not worried about the wage gap and you're suffering from the confidence gap. I'm not even going to get into the orgasm gap. And then because you've earned less money over your years and you didn't learn about investing, which is something else I'm big into, real estate investing, and you suffer during divorce as something that you have experience with. If you're not conscious to all of these gaps, then what happens is you have less money in retirement and you are much more likely to run out of money in your older age. And so I am out to reach girls before they start dieting through a program I have called Bold, which I'm actually working with my adult daughter now, who's a grant writer, to get grants to get it into schools, to educate women about what diet culture is doing to them and robbing them of their energy and capacity they could be using to embrace their power and do amazing things in the world, and really smash diet culture.
I love that. Excellent summary. Oh my goodness. So powerful. So much all wrapped into that. I had a client tell me recently that if she wasn't thinking about her weight, like the way she said it is, if I was skinny, I have no idea what I would think about. Like to indicate that's just constantly playing in her head. And it's like, what a shame of waste of your brain, to do that. And the thing I love about your book too, is that the approach is all about bringing pleasure and loving things and experiences into your life. Like the thing that I took from that book that I do all the time, like 100% of the time, is being really intentional about meals. So you will never, ever find me standing at my kitchen counter eating out of a leftover, like something cold leftover. I always heat it up, put it on a nice plate. Sometimes I'll use a placemat. I get myself a glass of ice water. I sit somewhere besides my office. Like I make the meal so that I'm actually paying attention to what I'm eating and, enjoying what I'm eating. So that was something I took from the book that I have just kept. And it's such a solid habit now. I'm just blind to it. Like I just do it without even thinking about it.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Yeah. I definitely, I think the Bare process is very much about adding amazing things to your life instead of diet culture being about subtraction and deprivation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about anything that you're working on, where people can find you, whatever else you want to tell us?
Sure. I think the latest thing I'm proud of is a community I have called Big Yes Energy. And we talk about all the things we've talked about here today. There's also a great podcast I have called You've Got Nerve, which you should come on the podcast, Michelle.
I would love to. I just listened to the episode about how not to get jet lagged.
Oh, that is one of my most popular episodes.
That is a really good one. If you're going on a trip and you want to know how not to get jet lagged, listen to that episode. That was really good.
Let me tell you how. 3 continents in a pilgrimage. Do you know I did not have jet lag coming home from Vietnam?
Oh my God.
And that stuff really works. So You've Got Nerve is a great podcast about women getting up the nerve to make changes in their lives and do amazing things. And if you want to have fun on social media, I'm at Susan Hyatt on Instagram and Facebook, and I have lots of fun, sometimes rants, but a lot of times comedic reels that'll make you laugh.
Yes. But your rants make me laugh too, because you're so right. Like you're so spot on. And I love when somebody tries to like talk smack to you or say something about your body or whatever. And you just give them the smackdown. It's so great.
Well, the latest insult. So I did a rant for those of you who are Swifties. I did a rant about people being upset about Taylor Swift just in general. And the men that have come out, and do you know their favorite insult? Because they love to go for when they can't come for your intellect, they go for your looks. And so the biggest insult I get lately since I turned 50 is, you're so old. And I'm like, oh my God, are you 12 and living in a basement?
That's what you got? Oh my gosh.
I'm just like, yeah, okay. Try harder, because I raised Ryan Hyatt. All right.
Is that all you got? Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
come on.
I just love it. Anyone could try to go up against you and you'd give them the smackdown. I love it. Yes, you are very fun to follow on social media for sure. Well, I just want to personally thank you. There are so many things. There are many things on this list that I made for myself about the impact that you've had on my coaching career and my life. Not all of them that I got to. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate what you're putting out in the world and just the impact that it's had on me as a person and a business owner. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. You are a delight.
Thank you for listening to the Overwhelmed Working Woman podcast. If you want to learn more about my work, head over to my website at michellegauthier.com. See you next week.